Hello and welcome to Diary of a Trader. Today's video we're going to go over eclipses, and this is kind of a continuation, well it's not kind of, it is a continuation of the series of videos that we'll be doing here over financial astrology. Again, financial astrology is not like the horoscopes or the things you read about how can I get my Libra to fall in love with me being a Sagittarius. It has nothing to do with that. The definition of financial astrology is it's mathematical psychology based on astronomy. And so when we talk about things like Libra or Leo or Mars being in the third house, those are just designations of of the area, or like a planet in Aries. That is just a way to say, well, this planet is in this part of our solar system at the moment. It's just giving it's a different way of saying its longitudinal position related to where we are here on Earth, or where it's related to in its orbit around the sun. So we take the angular, financial astrology takes the angular relationship and ascribes it a certain name according to which quadrant of a circle it's in. It's very much like this. So we can see that this is a circle, and here's Earth in the center, and we see Mars is right here, and it tells us that Mars is in Aquarius. Okay, so these are just designations by degrees of every 30 degrees we find planets in a different sign. And it's sometimes just easier to, at least for me it is, remember them as far as where they are in respect to the degree of 0 to 360. Anyways, what we're going to go over today is we're going to discuss how to use eclipses in your trading. So we have already discussed how to use excuse me. We've already discussed how to use the change of planet signs. So today we're just going to get right into the use of eclipses. And if I can find where I put it here, there it is. Now these will paint on the screen. So again, eclipses are not as common as fast planet changes. These are not a as common type of astrophenomena. But if we're looking at the euro dollar and we see eclipses as they show up, let's actually make these let's make them a little bigger and change the color to black maybe. So we can see that when an eclipse shows up, at least on this earliest data that we have, we see there's an eclipse that says that we may be going higher. Another one says we're going lower. As we move forward here, we see that it's sometimes hard to judge where an eclipse shows up and what the market is going to do. All right. So instead of using the daily, and there's nothing wrong with the daily is actually my preferred trading time period, but sometimes it's easier to use an oscillator, but then use it on the weekly because eclipses show up less frequently than other types of astronomical phenomena. Sometimes it's easier to use the weekly and use that in conjunction with the composite index, or with another tool like very similar to the composite index is the RSI. Actually, the composite index is like the RSI version 3.1. But what we could do is, if we're looking at a weekly chart and we see eclipses appear during a high or a low in our oscillators, or we could even use on the weekly stochastic RSI. stochastic momentum index, I'm sorry. But we could get a good view of how to trade eclipses by looking at the level of these oscillators. And so if we look here, we see that we in the stochastic momentum index, we see that we've changed from sloping up to sloping down. And then on that week that shows up, that eclipse is more than likely going to indicate that we're going to face some down pressure as we roll along. It's a little less clear at this sign, a little less clear at this sign, but certainly it's a lot more clear here. A lot more clear here. Certainly when we know that we are at some type of statistical bottom within the stochastic momentum index, we know that as an eclipse showed up here, that our probability of going lower was significantly less, and we had a nice opportunity to trade higher. All right, as we're moving along, and we can definitely see this play out as we get into the most recent years in 2014. We can see that the momentum index is in a sustained down zone, just a really very, very excessive selling pressure as we're moving forward. And then as we get into, late 2016, early 2017, we can see that eclipses tend to show their faces during areas of market highs and market lows. And so how you would trade these is going to be very much like any other phenomena. You know, we've gone over moon phases before, so if we use these in conjunction with moon phases, and it's just going to plop those on there. And then on the moon phases, all we really need to do is see the new moons and full moons. And so we know that we can even go to the daily here. We know that on the Euro at least, we know that new moons, which means there's no moon in the sky, we know that new moons usually tell us that we're at some type of market swing high. And so if we have an eclipse here and a new moon, that is a good signal that we are probably going to experience some downwards pressure. If we move back, and look at some other examples, new moon, there was selling pressure that followed it, but it eventually turned up. If we move back even farther here, we can see a strong correlation to eclipses and new moons. And we rarely ever see, well, we'll never see eclipses and full moons. All right. That is just one way to look at the market. Ultimately, what we really want to recognize with eclipses is that they signify change. They tell us that there is going to be some major changes in the future, and that we need to pay attention to the trend prior to it and coming up to it. So our next eclipse is in July 2018, July 13th, 2018. And this is interesting because this is an important area of Gann's dates that he specifically called out as very important to pay attention to, because he said yearly highs and lows can typically be found between the 7th and the 13th of July. And so we need to look to see if we are at or near yearly lows on this date, because if we are, then we have a good chance of a flattening trend before we go into the full moon period and then see a rise in prices. All right, that's just something to kind of take a look at and observe, and something that we can implement into our trading along with all the other astronomical financial astrology tools that we have used. Thank you for watching this video, and I look forward to talking with you in our next video. Bye-bye.